Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Caroline Hyde, anchor for Bloomberg Television. I have the great joy of co-anchoring the market close, taking you from 2 till 5 p.m. every day. Meanwhile, of course, in my coverage for Bloomberg News, I'm lucky enough to speak regularly with some of the most powerful executives, top money managers, and financial leaders. And I'm really excited to host the CIO Exchange, Workplace Evolution. Now, in the height of the pandemic, financial firms were faced with a pretty critical decision: transition thousands of employees to virtual work environments or go bust. So overnight, of course, infrastructure, operations, culture, they were digitized and will have long-term implications for the future of work, of course. Cloud technologies, AI, virtual collaboration, communication tools made telecommuting possible. It strengthened the connection between customers and employees. So at today's CIO Exchange, financial executives will discuss how their digital journeys have transformed business operations. What are the unique challenges and opportunities? How is digitization evolving employee collaboration, personal connections with customers, and of course, making organizations stronger, more resilient in a remote-first future? Now, before we begin the program, a few housekeeping notes for you. This is a virtual event, of course, so please bear with us if we experience any technical issues. If you're having trouble with audio or video quality, please just refresh your browser. Now, if you're having any trouble, open the event chat box in the bottom right corner and support will help you. This is an interactive event as well. We encourage you to get involved, engage with us, get on Twitter, use the hashtag CIO Exchange, discuss the event on LinkedIn, across Facebook, wherever you like to share. I also want to acknowledge our sponsor, that's Google Chrome Enterprise, for helping make this virtual briefing possible today. Now, to get started, I will turn things over to my colleague, Julie Chariel. She's Senior Equity Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, who will moderate a discussion on remote-first accelerating digital transformation.
Thanks, Caroline, and welcome everyone. In the height of the pandemic, financial firms were faced with a critical decision, right? Transition thousands of employees to virtual work environments or go dark. Connect with customers and allow them to transact digitally or go bust. So overnight, infrastructure and operations and culture shifted to remote environments, largely with great success, but really getting back to our former in-person ways after a year and a half is proving even more complicated. Cloud technologies, virtual collaboration, communication tools, all made telecommuting possible and even improved productivity and customer satisfaction compared to pre-COVID levels. Workers have become accustomed to working remotely, and customers of all generations have adopted digital channels. These behaviors appear to be sticking, and financial institutions are finding that adopting a hybrid model is essential, both to compete for talent and for customers. Still, maintaining a collaborative company culture in a remote-first work environment and connecting with customers how, when, and where they individually prefer are real challenges. So today we're going to explore some of these new challenges and opportunities and hear how leading financial institutions are addressing them. So let me introduce our distinguished panelists. We have Rich Gilbert, Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Information Officer at Affleck. Angela Sim, Chief Technology Resiliency and Experience Operations Officer at Bank of Montreal. And Hari Gopalkrishnan, Managing Director of Client-Facing Platforms Technology at Bank of America. Let's start out with a question for all three of you. So as you've begun to address the reopening of the economy, getting employees back into the office, getting customers back into your financial centers, what has surprised you most about the current environment? Let's start with Rich.
All right, thanks, Julie. Well, look, great to be here. I tell you, a lot of things surprised me over the last 18 months. If we had to go in kind of chronological order, I would say the first one was people's ability to shift to remote. I mean, most companies were able to do that in a 2-week period of time. And just the resilience of our employees to be able to do that was kind of one of my first surprises. Once we shifted to remote, I think that it leveled the playing field. So Affleck is traditionally an in-person, very highly engaged culture. And then what we did was we, shifted to this remote world, And what I saw is that boundaries that typically exist within a building or within a geography kind of disappeared. And you started to see an even playing field with everybody being on video, and collaboration actually increased where you would typically have people collaborating within a building or within a geography. Now we're collaborating all over the world. And that was a really forcing function that surprised me. I would say the next thing that surprised me was video fatigue, right? So we're on a video call now. Being on camera 8-10 hours a day, I didn't expect to see people have kind of the video fatigue. Now, I've gotten used to it. It's part of my role. I have to do that, but we have to be cognizant that not everybody wants to be on camera all day. So, we've had to adjust to that. And I would say maybe the last thing that surprised me is just recently. So we were really fast to exit, but we have been slow to return. So, if you think about why, right? So fear is a very powerful thing. And so when we were all didn't understand COVID and everybody said, you got to get out of your office, everybody did it quickly. And, and people adapted. But the same emotion, right, is having us slow to return. So we're having to think about how do we do this in a very planned fashion and staging people into the organization. And that's kind of what we're facing now, right? That's my biggest surprise is you can't just flip the switch and say, all right, we want everybody back in the office. It just doesn't work that way. And in fact, the new normal doesn't support that. People's norms have changed. The way they want to work has changed. And so, we've got to kind of think about what that future is and reinvent what the future of work is.
Thanks, Angela. Do you have you seen some of those same kinds of issues, and was there anything else that surprised you?
Absolutely. I'd like to echo Rich's comments that I think from the Bank of Montreal perspective, we're a heavy on-site organization. So in the heat of a matter of weeks, we moved everybody to mobility. And I was amazed and impressed by the team's resilience, by their capability and their flexibility to really move into a new way of working. Prior to COVID-19, the Bank of Montreal had 10,000 people working remotely. Within a couple of weeks, we were at 35,000 working remotely. And I would say there was probably two big aha moments for us. When we looked at the capabilities, it really enabled a lot of older organizations to look at how we might want to do a couple things differently. In an organization that has lots of history and amazing capabilities, there's always a mix of older and new technologies. This was a great opportunity to take a step back. What processes need to be optimized? What manual processes need to be digitized? So it really enabled us to look at our digital footprint and assess how we can optimize through technology. The last piece I think that was a bit of a shocker was how productive we've become. So I think there was often a assumption that working remotely would impact productivity. I've seen teams move so quickly, increase productivity, increase capability. What I see now we're really ensuring we support is people maybe have less of boundaries. Some people are trying to work 24/7. And you really have to encourage as a leadership team, how do you take a step back? How do you set your boundaries? And also make sure that you're healthy mentally and also supporting your teams. And those are really the big differences we saw at BMO.
Yeah, and I imagine that increase in productivity makes it hard to argue for everyone to come back right away. But the day does get long working from home, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Hari, what are you seeing from a customer experience side? What surprised you?
Yeah, again, great being here with you guys. From a customer standpoint, our strategy for a number of years has been around high tech and high touch. Empower our customers to do everything they can at their own time by themselves. But then when you need to show up at a branch, call a call center, we're there for you. And then seamlessly bridging the two experiences. And as we entered the pandemic, we continue to sort of invest in that strategy. And a couple of things have come about that have positively surprised us. First is the historical social sort of lack of willing to give up cash and checks suddenly disappeared when people didn't feel as comfortable going into a branch or didn't feel comfortable handing cash. And next thing you know, we see things like person-to-person payments, and our Zelle volumes are up 75% year on year. It's a great example of customers saying, look, I don't feel comfortable. Let me try this thing people keep talking about. Let me try it once. Oh, it's that simple? It's that easy? Gee, I'm going to do it forever. And so this idea of sort of being able to give the digital thing a shot when perhaps you weren't able to. Same thing with sales. We had a lot of centers close at different times, and we've had customers concerned about coming to the center. They said, I need a checking account for a son who's going to go off to college. Let me try it online. And next thing you know, this is so easy to open an account online. So our sales used to be about 20 to 25% of our sales were digital. Now 50% of our sales already are digital, self-service, end-to-end. You go into your mobile app, you go into your online platform. And so it's really broken sort of the back of a set of hesitancy, perhaps, of a certain set of use cases that customers were less willing to try on the digital platform. And the second part I'd say is demographic balance. Historically, we felt that the seniors, the boomers, kind of felt the generation that said, digital's not for me. Online banking school, the millennials love the mobile phone, but really we're not going to do this. We're going to go to the branch. And the reality is they gave it a shot. I mean, they were as concerned as everybody else, and we made it really easy for them. And we can certainly talk about the things that made it easy for them to say, we can let you engage with the app in a human fashion that lets you do things just as easily. And they said, let me try it. And sure enough, the biggest uptick in adoption we've seen over the last year has been in our senior and boomer population. And both those trends are continuing to stick even as we come out into a new normal, where we're seeing people say, look, I tried it once. I thought I would just do it during the pandemic, but it's so darn easy. I'm going to stay here. And of course, I'll come to the branch. I'll call the center when I really need it. But I think I can do this myself and I can take care of it. So those are a couple of big learnings we've had in the last year.
Yeah, I know. I definitely spent some time teaching my parents how to set up their Bank of America app and all the things they can do on it, which they didn't want to believe at first, and setting up their Instacart app and getting their groceries delivered. It was amazing. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the workplace side of this and talk about employees and workspace. I know there's still a lot of uncertainty, but let me start with Rich. What are you planning as Affleck looks to bring employees back into the office? What do you know now? What do you not know yet?
Well, so, there's a lot more unknowns than there are knowns. I would just tell you that. So what we do know is that we know that culture powers success, and that our culture has been one that is very tightly knit. In fact, Affleck has been one of the best places to work and Fortune most admired companies. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, how do you maintain culture in a new normal? And we've had to reimagine kind of what the future looks like with these new norms that we're talking about. And there's new expectations and new behaviors. And so one of the things that we did is we said, okay, let's develop a series of personas representing our employees. And so we've built a series of, on-site, hybrid, and then remote employees. And we define them by saying, okay, look, there's some characteristics that have to be defined. For example, help me by doing X, Y, and Z, right? Watch out for X, Y, and Z, or please don't do X, Y, and Z. And so we define these personas to really help define what that future of work looks like. Now, I'll just say that, the biggest one of those is hybrid, okay, is how do we make a hybrid environment conducive to people that are in the office and then remote, right? And so, it's something that we're still working through and that we're still struggling with. But I think that is one of the big unknowns ahead of us, is how do you deal with a shift in employee preference to being able to be hybrid, and how do you still maintain high levels of collaboration, high levels of innovation, and the way we think about this is the workplace becomes kind of that place to meet, right? Not necessarily the place to do work. And that's a big shift for us, is thinking through that differently. And then, for us, being predominantly an on-site culture prior to COVID, moving to this hybrid model, we have to think about how do you maintain that culture that I talked about to beginning with. And, that's kind of what our big focus is.
Interesting. Angela, how about you? What are some of the other knowns or unknowns that BMO is contending with now?
I think that's really a great question. And when you look at it, we have a lot of unknowns. This is really uncharted territory that none of us have been through before. And this is actually, it's interesting when you look at how diversity inclusion comes into working from anywhere, working remotely, or a hybrid work model. Customers and staff all have different needs. So going back to Rich's point on personas, it's assessing what are the needs of all your customer and staff. How do you allow people to work with flexibility in a hybrid type model, You could work on site, you could work at home or remotely or in different locations. And I think through this, it's also looking at productivity and how does an organization create a really effective working environment so their staff's productive. It's also from a culture perspective, how do you keep everyone included? How do you make sure that whether or not you're in US, Asia, Canada, how do you have that collaboration, that geographic diversity and disbursement really not matter as teams come together? I would say in this time, employee retention is a real focus of our organization and many organizations. We have a very strong listening culture that we're consistently having surveys and pulse checks because we want to be able to have flexibility and we also want to continue to drive the bottom line. And so I think the hybrid model is really where most organizations will land. And I think it'll depend on the organization's culture, their objectives, and the staffs of their customers and their staff of where they land.
Yeah, so it seems you definitely have come a long way at both of your firms to knowing where you need to be, right? We know it's hybrid.
Absolutely.
For many employees, may depend on the role, but being flexible seems right now like sort of the name of the game, both to keep employees, attract employees, and figure things out as we go.
Absolutely.
So I think, something to think about is, it's productivity, right? It's culture. And then it's flexibility from an employee perspective, right? So how do you maintain productivity? How do you give, flexibility in the workplace? And, how do you make sure that your culture permeates through your workforce? So, those are kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah. Let's move on to the customer experience. And let me ask Hari. Hari, how is Bank of America addressing the changes in customer behavior post-pandemic? What's been easier to address? What's been harder to solve for?
Yeah, and it goes back to sort of what I was saying, what customers are doing differently in the pandemic, right? So probably 2 or 3 examples I would offer up. The first is customers are making payments differently than they used to, whether it be person-to-person payments. Your small business is no longer walking up and delivering a piece of paper with an invoice. Instead, they're issuing a payment to you, shows up in your mobile app, you accept it, and you pay the invoice. So kind of creating delightful experiences to continue to help our customers manage their financial lives through digital platforms, through person-to-person payments. That's an area we're significantly investing in to just make that as frictionless, as seamless, and secure, right? Security, privacy are table stakes in all this. And it's not like the bad guys have been staying away because it's a pandemic, right? So investing in security in our payment infrastructure is an important part of what we do. The second thing I would say is as things get more and more digital, the thing our customers said to us is like, look, you're jamming so much stuff into a 5-inch screen. It's just hard to find. You got to make it easier to find stuff. So this idea of natural language processing and that you want the customer to just, in human speak, ask the machine to do something. And the machine just does it for you. And so if you look at the work we did around what we call Erica, our AI-driven chatbot platform, it was all around saying people were asking us questions around the pandemic. I mean, how do I defer my bill because I can't pay my credit card bill this month? And that's not something you can build in a menu on a mobile screen. You have to be able to teach sort of some kind of a natural language engine. And so as we do more and more of these features, being able to give customers that human interface, even though they're dealing with a machine, goes a long way in building confidence that the machine understands you and that we understand you. And you can be comfortable that you don't have to walk into a branch or call a call center or things along those lines. And the final thing I would say is transitioning from a transactional relationship to a long-term life advice relationship. So, it's not just about saying, what's your credit card payment? When's your bill due? But what are you trying to do in your life? Do you have a plan in your life? We all have life plans, right? We all want to put our kids through college. We're retiring parents. We want to retire someday. Maybe want to buy a boat, go on vacation next week. You want to plan for it. So being able to ask our questions. So we have a platform called Life Plan, which we created. And since inception, we thought we'd have 100,000 customers initially use it. We have 4 million customers that have already come in and told us what their life plan is. And this then informs us of what's important to them so that we can tailor the experience we offer them, the transactional experience of the experiences. So it's tailored to their needs and their unique offerings. So it's sort of building together an experience that makes you feel comfortable that my bank understands me, even though it's all happening digitally and I don't recognize the person on the other side.
So interesting. The Erica product is really fascinating. It makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about mobile real estate, right? I wonder, were there certain steps that you took to help clients get comfortable in using natural language processing, it's been around for a while. It's great. Maybe Amazon's Alexa and so on have helped a little bit, but the things that you did to help people get comfortable using Erica.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of research that went into what do customers really want. We don't want to build shiny technology for the sake of building shiny technology, right? We built it because we felt there was a problem out there. And so we, for example, looked at all our call center logs to understand what do people call about? How do they ask a question? We may think that people call our things Advantage banking account, but no human being knows what an Advantage banking account is. They just know they have checking account. Like what are the 50, you'd be amazed. There are probably 100 ways in which someone can ask the question, like what's in my account? When you say the words pay bill, are you trying to pay a bill? Or are you trying to pay William, who happens to be Bill, a contact of yours, right? It's sort of like making it easy enough and dereference it. And it's amazing the type of questions people would ask. You look in the law, and then we learned. We were like probably 70% accurate out of the gates. Then we looked at the times when we're tripping up for our customers. We learned and we learned and we learned. And it's sort of this humility around saying you got to always keep learning. You always have to hear your customer feedback. And as you hear it, you make your platform better. And now we're 90+% in terms of recognition. And proud to say our client stat also is at an all-time high, driven by the fact that we've been listening and giving them what they were looking for.
So interesting. And this is a great segue to my next question, which is just about the technology and the tools, that are really helping you all achieve an effective hybrid model. And so if we again begin looking at the work experience, Angela, let me ask you, what are some of the tools that you found most useful so far?
Absolutely. I think technology has been a pivotal part of this whole journey. You really couldn't work remotely unless you had technology as your underpinning. At BMO, we really looked at making technology accessible and a priority for our teams. So as soon as the pandemic hit, we very quickly moved to video conferencing capabilities with Microsoft Teams. We actually launched it in 6 weeks, where to be frank, our older technology took 2 years to deliver. So the pace and capability of delivery has just been expedited. I would say video conferencing specifically has become the hottest tool in the market. Most of us can't imagine not having a video conference or the camera on to be able to interact with people each day. When you look at even Microsoft Teams capability, it started with really video and chats and team channels. It's now moving to whiteboarding. So in the past, you used to be able to get a whole team together into a room and draw stuff out. Now we're moving digitally, that you have digital whiteboards. We're moving to things like breakout rooms. So I have a 13-year-old son, and my son uses other technology, and they're always doing these breakout rooms so they can collaborate as a team. I'm seeing organizations move there too. How can we bring teams together? You can imagine BMO has a North American presence, a European and Asian presence. And so how do you bring those teams together in a seamless way? I think it really opens doors for an industry. It also opens skill sets across the globe that you can have the best skill sets that really collaborate together. Now, interestingly, from a tools perspective, we also often talk about video and interaction with the teams. Security has been a big piece of tooling and capability during the pandemic. The pandemic's really heightened the exposure in the banking industry regarding the threat landscape. We've seen a significant increase in phishing campaigns, which to date have been successfully blocked, but it's a piece that we're always looking at and always want to make sure we're on top of. The distributed work from home model really increases the bank's risk of data loss and potential breaches. So we've moved quickly, that we've invested in a lot of technology infrastructure, including state-of-the-art security hub, enabling teams to work globally in a safe mechanism, and really recovering from any security threats that could come our way. When I look as an organization, we use something called VPN, Virtual Private Network, that really gives a security type capability that employees can safely come into a bank's network. And if you look at where we came from, we went from 10,000 a day to 35,000 a day. With technology, that's how we enabled it. And I think if I look ahead, technology will continue to evolve. Organizations will continue to evolve and continue to see how we leverage that heavy digital footprint.
Interesting. And Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Affleck is doing to better outfit the office for collaboration?
Absolutely. Well, like Angela said, Teams has been a pivotal part of our video collaboration, and it's been instrumental. And we rolled it out in a very short amount of time. So it's amazing how we've reset our whole expectation of how long it takes to deploy technology. When you need to, you can get it done. One of the things I would just say is, I'm in the office today, and this is the first time that I've been in the office in, whatever, 15 months. And so, so a lot of focus right now on how to make things happen differently. One of the things that we're doing is we're implementing a band, for example, that takes your temperature. And it also allows you to be able to open the doors into the building. It allows you to unlock your computer. It allows you to, for example, if you had a secure elevator, do that. So we're looking at new technologies to make it easier just to come back in, right? So, and things that we used to be concerned about, right? Taking temperatures and when somebody comes in, we have now technology that can do that. One of the other things that we're doing is as we walk around this building, right? So it's a 1,000-person building that was designed for agile collaboration. We spent a tremendous amount of time doing design for that, but it was in-person collaboration, right? So agile teams are in-person, small teams, and we have all these workspaces that we just went through, and we're working on redesigning those to be video enabled. Because you got to think about, how do you solve that hybrid problem where you have some people in the office and some people remote? And so we're putting video cameras in and video solutions in all the different agile spaces. The other thing that I would just say is, that video enabling is great. However, we've got to teach people how to act differently. One of the things, being in a conference room again, you see that there is what I call multi-threaded communications, right? People talk and other people talk. And, if there's somebody on a video screen, that's a serial-based communication, like we're doing square to square to square here today. And you take turns, but how do you do that and effectively bring in and engage people that are not in the office? And so just like you raise your hand, virtually, you can do the same thing in a video collaboration and adopt new principles and new norms of working. And I think that hybrid model is what we're really trying to solve going forward. And there's going to be new technologies that aren't even in existence today that are going to help us solve that. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, lots of changes, as you said, just in how we do things, and kind of a new office etiquette that's just beginning to emerge. Make sure you get that lighting good in the conference room too, Rich. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hari, let me ask you about technology. So what tools are you using to connect and serve your customers? You talked a little bit about AI. And do you have any feedback yet on what's been most successful, or what's been least helpful?
Yeah, I mean, let me build on what Rich and Angela said, right? I think absolutely spot on in the technical capabilities. The one thing we found ourselves having to operate is a hyper agile model, right? The government came up with a plan around PPP lending on a Thursday, and we're expected to go live with software on Saturday. I mean, and that requires the kind of collaboration that just you can't even start to imagine. So taking those individual building blocks that Rich and Angela did a great job describing, but then assembling them into a business process that lines up with your SDLC, lines up with your agile development model. How do you bring the UX designer into the same virtual session and are designing on the fly? The legal risk compliance person is in the same room so that we can make sure that we're streamlining any approvals. The person who is actually going to be responsible for testing is right there, the sign-offs. And you almost have to kind of create a quick overlay using these tools of historical processes that required humans to be collectively in a room together. And I think that's been sort of a fascinating science experiment and sociology experiment of sorts. And I think we've all been thrust in a situation where we had to deliver software much, 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 much faster than we've ever had to. And the only way you do that is do exactly that. So what I'm excited about is just taking things like defect tracking, design, collaboration, approvals, all those things, and really making them hyper virtual. Being always on, connected. You need someone, you just bring the expert into the room. They come in, they're done a couple of minutes later, they're out, and things are flowing and all that stuff. And that's the kind of taking your SDLC to the next level, which is what I think our customers and clients are demanding, especially as they see sort of the rate of change of needs emerging. And in all that, I think, proud to say that, we've had about 700 plus patents last year, which means our teammates haven't just sort of been productive, they've been like innovatively productive. Because sometimes the knock is, hey, maybe they were just kind of, filling out the boxes and doing the stuff and keeping systems up. It was well beyond that. I mean, they were not just delivering for customers sort of the stuff they planned for, but we had to innovate so much around things we hadn't planned for yet that we actually did a lot of that. And sort of the patents certainly are a nice way to recognize that, we've been able to kind of innovate even during this tough time in this virtual collaborative environment.
Another example of the great productivity improvements that we've seen in this new environment. It's great. I want to conclude with a question for each of you, and I'd like to ask you to kind of think big picture, think sort of futuristically, and help us think through what's next, right? I mean, we're still in the early stages of everyone getting out and about again. So what's on your radar to help you prepare for what life will look like once the new normal is normal, say 2022 or so? What do you think is on the horizon for us? Let me start with Rich.
Well, I think that there's a lot of exciting things ahead of us. One of the things that I'm excited about is that we hired 25% of increased our organization by 25% over the last year, and there are people that we haven't met that are across the globe that I'm looking forward for the opportunity to meet. So that's one thing I'm excited about. But I think that from a technology perspective, it's really how do you create the best of both worlds? Because we have shown that a virtual model can be more productive, that you can collaborate, that you can get things done. Now we're creating this whole new normal, right, that's going to be in the existence. And it's that blending of how do you take the best of in-person collaboration, innovation, things that really matter in the old style of working, right? Let's put it that way. And then how do you marry those with the new norms, the new capabilities, the new technologies, and the new mindsets that have been established over the last 18 months? We talked a little bit about expectations on technology and rolling things out and adapting them quicker. I think what we're going to see in the next few years is just this hyper speed on technology, and it's going to allow us to move in at a pace that we have never seen. And so I'm excited about that and excited about rolling out new solutions to be able to do that. What those solutions are, I think we're all trying to figure that out, and that's part of kind of the definition of the future.
Yeah. Angela, what do you think we'll be talking about in these forums in the next year or two?
I think what we'll be talking about in the forums is really our commonality. So I look at all of us are from 3 different organizations, very senior leadership team, and we all really struggled through the same type of challenges. We're having a lot of similar successes, but I think all of us are saying there's some unknowns about what's ahead. So if I look at what's up ahead, I think technology, digitization is the future of the industry and continues to look at how do we optimize processes, manual capabilities, and how do we keep pushing the technical envelope. I think also we'll see, a rise of a desire for human connections. I think many people prior to COVID didn't understand that importance perhaps of face-to-face, and now what we see is that people are just craving it. And although technology doesn't demand that people come into the office, I think there'll be people who will choose to come into the office to connect. I think mental health and focusing on the whole being, flexibility, both from an organization perspective and an employee perspective, how that comes together and melds to really give an amazing career opportunity and also flexibility as careers progress. I think it'll be amazing to see how our organizations and our industries evolve in this way.
Yeah, interesting. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, I went back into the office several weeks ago, and it was incredibly energizing. And yeah, humans definitely crave those connections. We were all so happy to see each other, for sure.
Absolutely. I would say some of us just go to the grocery store and are so thrilled to see people. And so I think that'll continue to happen as we evolve.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good thing. Hari, what do you think? What's next? What do you see in your crystal ball a year or two from now that we'll be trying to solve for?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Building on Angela's comment about the commonality, and that's very, very true. What's also we realized is that we also have unique challenges, and we're very personalized in terms of what we need. So from a customer standpoint, you want to be treated as a segment of one. You want to be treated based upon your individual need, what you're going through, your kids, your family, your needs. And same as an employee, to be honest with you. I mean, you have certain preferences of where you are in your life. You have a certain condition. All those things have to come into play. And I think our customers and associates and teammates increasingly are going to, in a way, demand that we actually offer personalized solutions for them, get to know them for who they are, and offer something that fits in with the rest of their lifestyle. And that's going to be a very interesting, unique challenge for us to jointly undertake.
Customization, the name of the game. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. We are going to wrap it up there. That's all time that we have. I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists, Rich, Angela, and Hari. It was a great session. I know I learned a lot, lots of food for thought and lots of good ideas. Hope everyone out there has learned something from this, and I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You set people up for success by simply having them use Chrome OS. You don't have to do rigorous security trainings and things like that when you just have a platform that's secure by default.
The security applications that exist on Chrome OS are pretty much invisible to me. You just log in and go.
I'm Pooja Malpani, the CTO for Bloomberg Media. Today, I'm here with Loren Hudziak, Google Chrome Enterprise Customer Engineer, to share what the hybrid transformation means and what Google is doing to prepare for hybrid work using modern technologies as a key enabler. In some places, new cases are surging and returning to work is the last thing on people's minds. In other areas, conditions are improving and companies are starting to think about transitioning their workforce back to the office. Loren, what are some technology trends you are seeing in the workplace?
Hi, Pooja. Yeah. Well, as we've seen over the past year, IT teams have had to quickly provide employee access to cloud-based business applications. And this is a trend that we're expecting to continue as more and more applications are becoming cloud-based. And this is so that we meet the needs of a hybrid workforce. Up to 78% of IT decision makers report that their goal is to provide all employees cloud-based access to business applications within the next 2 years. And at the same time, more than half of HR leaders say that poor technology or infrastructure for remote working is the biggest barrier to an effective transition to a distributed workforce. It's becoming pretty evident that disruptive and poor user experience with devices and apps that aren't built to be cloud first are resulting in this really poor collaboration and productivity experience. So there really hasn't ever been a greater need for both the right tools and endpoints in place to make sure that employees are effective and productive, no matter where they work.
What does Google's return to office look like?
So at Google, we'll be moving to a hybrid work week where most Googlers spend approximately 3 days in the office and then 2 days from wherever they work best. It should come as no surprise that as the modern, secure, cloud-first platform, that Chrome OS is going to play a key role in our transition to a hybrid work model. Because Chrome OS devices can really be easily shared, that provides much more flexible working models and working spaces. And because user profiles are stored in the cloud, along with collaboration solutions like Google Workspace, employees can log into a Chrome OS device and access what they need and pick up right where they left off.
Diving a little deeper, what technologies are you using to support the return to office?
Yeah, sure. I touched on a few ways that we're using Chrome OS and tools to support our return to office. So in certain office locations, Googlers can actually reserve desks through this internal booking and monitoring tool that we've set up with a high-performance Chrome box. And we use a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor, and employees can log into the Chrome box, which syncs their cloud profile and then start working within that same environment that they have on all of their Chrome OS devices. We're also announcing these new docking stations that are designed specifically for Chrome OS devices and allow employees to bring their Chromebook from home and connect to the dock with a single USB cable, and then use a monitor, keyboard, and a mouse for a complete and full desktop experience. Every Chrome OS device enables this zero trust security working model. We're using Beyond Core Enterprise to provide that. It gives our workforce a very simple yet secure access to applications, and at the same time provides this additional security controls for our IT division.
My last question, what advice do you have for business leaders as they begin the return to office?
While employees have adapted really well, with these new ways of working, there are challenges that still remain that comprise IT and employee experiences that could really slow the return to office. So when you're thinking about making your way back to the office, keep in mind what your employees and IT teams really need. Flexible, secure, cost-effective, simple solutions for the endpoint and their management tools that really help employees work from either office or home. You want an easy access to work tools and apps that help employees maximize productivity as well as collaboration, and simple yet easy management of multiple devices from a single location. Quick deployment for IT, and at the same time, providing a return on your technology investment. Chrome OS devices are designed to support both this hybrid and complete return to office strategy. And we've got some really great resources on how to get started, as well as useful tips to enable employees to be effective and productive from either the office, the home, or really anywhere.
Thanks, Loren. Appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Pooja.
Well, right now, of course, we all hope and we see a continuation of a new normal, a post-COVID life coming into view as vaccines roll out. And companies across the globe are preparing to bring workers back to the office, whether it be hybrid or perhaps a remote-first model. Here to discuss how institutions are thinking about this transition and the importance of keeping women in particular in the workplace is Nandita Bakhshi. She's President and CEO of the Bank of the West, co-CEO at BNP Paribas USA Inc. Nandita, it is such a joy to have you join us today. Thank you so much to talk about, well, not only the wealth of experience you have prior to the pandemic, you've been running them in banking in the sector for about 35 years. You now, of course, oversee about 1.8 million customers, but the experience you must have had in 2020 to ensure that those customers are being satisfied, being able to remote run it, basically have people being able to service your business and indeed take part in the dispersion of the PPP loans, those payment protection checks that had to go out to small businesses. It was no mean feat. So first and foremost, if you want to just tell us a little bit, as we look towards we hope and pray, an end to this COVID lifestyle, perhaps, and a new normal, what does that new normal mean to you right now?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's been an incredible journey for the last 15 months because we had about 80% of our workforce work from home pretty much right away. It just took us a couple of weeks, and I was so impressed how easily and smoothly it was done that we had 80% of our workforce working from home. But as you know, we are essential service at the banking business. So we had our branches open. And the branches were open throughout. We did not shut down any branches, even though we had restricted hours and we had, of course, enhanced safety for and cleanliness and sanitization for our branches. But we were open for our customers. And as we look to moving back to work from the office, because we never stopped working, as we go back to work, I would say, or go back to the office, I would say that we are also being extremely careful, because the safety of our employees and our customers is our paramount concern. So we're going to be bringing people in phases. And we've also looked at the employee base, all 10,000 employees outside of the branches, and segregated them into different stratification, those that need to be in the office all the time, those that can work remotely, and then those that could come into the office a few days a week. So we plan to bring them in. And we're doing this with a lot of technology. So we're providing them with an application that they can actually figure out where they're going to sit, and so that we can have the offices cleaned before they come, and then, of course, having cleaned up after they've left. But then we're also going to do the temperature check and the other safety measures. So as we bring back individuals back to the office, it's going to be very, very interesting and important. And while I'll tell you that we've got a lot of planning going on, we've really done this ground up, there is going to be agility that's required, because we don't know what the situation will be as we start to bring back folks to work. So we're going to be extremely agile about it, and we are going to be actually preferring progress over perfection.
Like that progress. But talk to us about the progress you've had in terms of viewing and listening to the views of your stakeholders, primarily those that work for you, as you bring them back to the office. Do you think you will eventually have everyone back? Do you want to have everyone back? Do you like this new flexibility that you've been able to provide, having to so swiftly have 80% of your workforce working from home?
Yeah, I think the future of work is going to be very different. I mean, I don't think we're going to go back to where we were. I think future of healthcare is going to change, future of education is going to change, and banking's not going to be any different. During COVID, we saw a significant shift in employees or customers coming into work, or no, customers coming in. So we have seen a shift in that. The footfall in our branches have gone down significantly. We've seen customers migrate to digital channel to online usage, and we're going to be making sure that we have the products and services and the experience that they're expecting going forward. So I think the future of work in banking and future of serving customers in the banking world is going to be very, very different.
Talk to us, I mean, for our audience of information officers out there and technology-minded individuals, how did you pivot in that moment? Were you already a digitally focused bank? Were you already making investments and focus there? Or was this something that you had to really accelerate?
No, we were all actually digitally minded and focused for quite a bit of time now. We've been hiring from Silicon Valley. We've been bringing in talent. We've invested in infrastructure. We've invested in partnerships with open banking and other programs like that. So we were making tremendous progress when this hit. So in fact, as it hit, as the pandemic came up and we had the opportunity to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program that SBA offered, I'm very proud to tell you that we were one of the very first companies that came out with an online application for the customers. And we did this in a matter of hours and not days or weeks. And that is only because we had that talent and the infrastructure already built up. And we also had the culture where people could come together, sitting in their homes in a very agile way, could come together and develop the solution for our customers and our employees.
How did you keep that culture, that level of support, when suddenly everyone is largely working from home, they feel isolated, how did you ensure that people felt that they could still collaborate, that they could give you their expertise when you needed to suddenly develop this, this PPP program that was online in nature, and you were the first bank to do that? How do you think that was attained via the support you gave to your talent?
You're very fortunate to have had a culture of inclusion, culture of people working together, and the fact that we were remote and people were in their studies or their living rooms didn't make a difference. In fact, as the program launched, the PPP program launched, our SBA team was relatively small. We couldn't handle the millions and thousands of transactions coming in and the requests coming in from our customers. So we actually went out and got volunteers from the bank. Overnight, we got 600 volunteers to stop doing what they were doing or do this addition to their day jobs, and essentially got trained of how to process a PPP loan, and they started to work. There was a group of people that would come after dinner around 9 p.m. and would work through the night. And again, these individuals were sitting in their living rooms or bedrooms. So what they had done, and this is so creative, it's all them, and what they did is they set up a conference line where people can talk to each other, where people could put on music, and so they didn't feel alone throughout the night as they were processing these applications. Again, I think that is the culture that we've built over time. It's a very inclusive culture. It's a diverse culture. It's a culture that values, it's got a lot of heart. It values what people contribute, both to our employees and to our customers. And that really helped us through this pandemic.
How have you done that? How have you built that culture? Does it come from top down, the fact that you're in leadership and you're thinking about your board level, your management level, being 30% female, being 30% diverse as well, and people of color? Is it top-down led, or is it more about the people that you're bringing in and that you're hiring?
I think it's all of the above. I don't think a culture can be created top-down, even though I'm a huge advocate of a diverse, inclusive culture. I can't create it. I think I've had individuals that have come in from outside or from within the company that really thrive in a company culture like this. So they have built it. And I am just a beneficiary of it because it works so well during PPP. Or the other thing that the team did, which was amazing, is when we all went remote, the frontline folks constantly called their customers. They called it wellness calls to make sure they were doing okay. If they needed a credit line, if they needed a overdraft, reversed out, a fee reversed out, that we were there to help them. And our customers would constantly tell us that this was unique to the bank. I'm sure other banks were doing it, and I loved hearing that. But these wellness calls have become part of who we are today. So as we go back to working, and so many of the folks are going to work remotely, I'm not worried that our customers are not going to be taken care of.
Have you had to build any technology to support that? Or was this clearly, it felt like it was something that came from within the heart, the mind of the people who wanted to reach out to their customer base? But there are, of course, programs to ensure that you're keeping in contact with your key clients as and when you should, getting nudges and pointers. Is that something that you can build into your technology, do you think, to support that sort of ongoing relationship?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's both the human relationship helped by technology. I truly believe technology is an enabler. It's not the be-all and end-all. So we used both low-tech, just a phone call, and we used somewhat high-tech, where we introduced DocuSign, where the customers didn't have to come in to the branches to sign paperwork. They could do this electronically sitting in their homes. So it was a combination of low-tech and high-tech, but honestly, the driver of this was the culture, the people. I have been so amazed at the tenacity, the perseverance, and most importantly, the heart. And while this was going on, there were wildfires in California. There were employees that were cooking for each other and sending food over to individuals that were impacted.
It's an amazing story to reach your ears as well, and we're so glad that you're able to pass it on to us in the audience. And I'm thinking now, as you paint that picture of volunteers, 600 people coming to give themselves in the evening, post 9 p.m., post dinner. I'm just thinking how that divided up across type of person, because I myself, as a mother of young children, thinking how you managed to do the day job if you were sat at home, having to suddenly make your home your study, having to answer calls, put in the phone calls, while also got childcare commitments. Maybe 9 p.m. would have been a far more efficient time for me to work. How have you thought about that in ensuring, because we see the economic devastation that's been laid bare at people of color and women in particular who've been left behind as we start to see the economy reviving, because they are still strained, particularly when it comes to childcare and the like. How are you thinking about that as you bring your own workers back to work and as you see your customers evolve too?
Yeah, and I would say throughout all of this, the teams have been extremely flexible. So you're absolutely right. Each individual has different demands and different flexibility. So what we created while we were in COVID, we created a group that we call parachutes. These were individuals that had some kind of comorbidity or just were afraid to go into the branches because of their contact with the customer. So they said, I can't do that. So we elected to create this group that were given other roles, whether it is in the collections role or doing KYC type of work, or even doing PPP work. And that exists even today as the branches have opened up and we're kind of coming back to normal. So again, that is, I think, what's interesting, and this is why I say I like progress over perfection, is it's a very iterative process. And you asked me a second part of the question, if you could just repeat that, because I've already forgotten as I was giving you my answer.
Well, no, that was exactly it. It was asking how you're thinking about ensuring that people who've been left behind, in particular women who are coming back to the workforce, feel that they still have this inbuilt flexibility, perhaps. Are you hearing that people are wanting to see a flexibility that continues even as we see perhaps the entire workforce vaccinated, even as we see everyone return to work? Will you continue to have this hybrid way of working, do you think?
Yes, we would. But you bring up an excellent point about the women. And I have been a big proponent of women in positions of power, especially P&L roles, because as I've come up through the, the corporate ranks, that was a particular choice I made. So I'm a big proponent of that. And I believe that during the pandemic, we've probably lost some of the good work that we had done prior to the pandemic, because we did see lots and lots of women, not just at Bank of the West, but overall leave the workforce. I think that number is as high as 2.5 million people left the workforce just in 2020, and that trend continues. And I'm extremely concerned about that. So there's a program that I'd love to tell you about that we recently signed up with a company called Women Back to Work, where we call it returnship. These are individuals that left their corporate jobs some time ago, either for take care of a child or during pandemic. We're bringing them back, and these are software engineers. They are developers. They're coders that we are bringing back, and we are putting them through immersion for 16 weeks, all online, of course, and then we'll put them to work. And I'm very excited about that, because I really believe we need programs like this, because they're very, very qualified women out there that left their workforce some time ago that should be brought back. So we call it returnship, and it's a terrific program that I'm so proud to be part of.
Have you had to invest anything further, Nandita, to make that a reality? Or was the investment process already there? Was the infrastructure there to be able to ensure that sort of learning was available? That immersion, as you say, the 16-hour course online, was all able to be put in place?
No, it was already there. Again, it's programs that we're taking care of or taking advantage of that already exist in the company. It's just the creative nature of how we're reaching out and making sure that we include this section of the population within our workforce.
How do you connect from a HR perspective, from you understanding your workforce perspective? How have you been able to ensure that everyone feels supported at this moment, as you are asking people to start to return to work, as you are trying to understand whether they feel confident to? Is it about sort of forms that you fill out? Is it online processes? Is it an app? How are you understanding how your workforce feels right now as they start to come back and look to be productive within within an office space as well as at home?
It's a multi-pronged program that we have. We send out, historically, we would do yearly or bi-yearly surveys, employee surveys. Now we do mini surveys every few months. And we ask them how they're doing. And very quickly, we transition from not just what's going on, but also how they're feeling, their wellness, their mental wellness are questions that we are asking if people are comfortable sharing that with us, because it then helps us put programs together. Like we have a program called Thrive, where we bring in people and we bring in an expert who can talk to you to say, if you're having difficulty dealing with the pandemic, how can we help you? We also set up forums called We Stand Together, and we did that right after George Floyd's death, and we had 750 people just come together impromptu that wanted to share their thoughts and feelings, and that creates a very safe environment for the organization. And I would say I am one that I love to go out and talk to people. In fact, my first 6 months of my tenure, I was out and about, and I met close to 50% of our employee base, person to person, right? So I feel that if I don't reach out, I'm not engaging with folks. So I have set up what is called Up Close with Nandita. And I invite practically every week about 20, 25 individuals to come in on WebEx and for us to have a real meaningful conversation, not just, what are the numbers, what's the ROI? We talk about that too. We talk about how you're doing. How can I help them feel more connected to the bank? So as we come back, I'm very excited that so much of this could be in person, even though we're going to be careful.
That's a wonderful thing to have set up, and to have that closeness with your workforce. It's interesting how much sort of you were saying within this focus on digitalization was already there for you. The investment was already there. It sort of just came into play even more. I think of how so many focuses for businesses. I know you're a woman who came on who wanted not only to focus on the culture of the business and being a diverse one, but also being an ethical one. You're looking at the E, the S, the G, and how have you managed to remain committed to, for example, ensuring you're shifting towards a more environmentally friendly bank as well, while perhaps you had outgoings, investment that you had to make because of a reaction to the pandemic?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would say today more than ever, people, planet, and profit are interconnected. And we have to focus and invest on all three for us to have a sustainable recovery. For so long, we, the humans, have focused and prioritized economic growth over social justice, over environmental causes. So we as an institution at Bank of the West and BNP Paribas are extremely committed to ESG. We are extremely committed to a sustainable future and sustainable finance. So I have programs. In fact, back a few years ago, I promised at a climate conference in San Francisco that we would invest about $1 billion by 2025. I'm very pleased to tell you that we will probably reach that in 2021. So we're extremely focused on that. We have products like 1% for the planet that any consumer can buy and contribute to organizations that are focused on the planet by just being part of that checking account. We have credit cards that will tell you what is the carbon emission that you're creating through your purchases and travel. Wow. We have full verticals that are focused on ESG. And of course, diversity is a big focus of mine. So pleased to tell you that we've received honors and accolades as best place to work for women, LGBT, Human Rights Commission, 100%. So it's really the totality that makes us who we are at Bank of the West.
Sadly, we only have 30 seconds left, but Nandita, I wanted to leave the audience with a little bit about you. What did you learn about yourself in this period, do you think? Have you changed at all, changed your work habits, your life habits, your love habits?
I found out that I was more of an extrovert than I thought I was. And I miss not having people around me. And I also found out that connecting, and the importance of culture became so important to me during this time. I believe I tried to be an empathetic leader, and I think that became very, very critical. Because what I do is after my day ends, I then start to talk to people just one-on-one, branch managers, KYC operators, just to see how they're doing. And I saw that in talking to them, it was helping me because I'm going through some of the same turmoils as they are.
Well said. So true. Everyone can relate to you so much with that. And we want to thank you so much for spending some of your time, the time that you invest in your own employees and your workforce, but also coming and speaking with us about how you've placed your business to return to the office, or indeed this new flexible new normal that we learn about. Nandita, Bakhshi, it has been such a joy having you from the Bank of the West and, of course, BNP Paribas USA. We wish you well, stay well, and enjoy this ability to be more extrovert once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for the CIO Exchange Workplace Evolution. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and we welcome your feedback. Please write to us on Twitter using #CIO Exchange. And thanks again to our speakers and to you for being such an engaging audience. We also would like to thank Google Chrome Enterprise for supporting today's event. For more information from Google Chrome Enterprise, please visit the Resources tab on your screen. A replay of today's event will be available on BloombergLive.com along with an event highlights article. Enjoy the rest of your day.